Welcome to the channel Strakora Coins, and before you skip this video, let me ask you something. What if I told you that a simple penny from 2014, the kind you probably handled just last week at the grocery store, could be worth $16 million? Most people ignore this coin every single day, tossing it into jars, leaving it as tips, or casually spending it without a second glance, but the lucky few who know what to look for have stumbled upon a fortune that could change their entire lives, and today, I'm going to show you exactly what makes this particular 2014 THREE Lincoln Penny so incredibly valuable that collectors around the world are desperately hunting for it right now. Now, I need you to pay close attention because this isn't just about one amazing coin. Stick with me until the very end of this video because after we dive deep into this 2014 THREE penny mystery, I'm going to reveal another Lincoln penny that sold for an absolutely mind-blowing amount, and then we'll cap it off with a third coin that will leave you speechless. But I won't tell you those values just yet because the suspense is part of the journey, so let's get into why this 2014 THREE Lincoln Penny is making headlines and turning ordinary people into millionaires overnight. The year 2014 was relatively recent in coin collecting terms, and the Denver Mint, indicated by that little D mark beneath the date, produced billions of Lincoln pennies that year, flooding circulation with what seemed like ordinary pocket change. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process, something went catastrophically wrong with a small batch of these pennies, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm of errors that transformed these common coins into some of the most sought-after treasures in modern American numismatics. The specific error we're talking about involves a combination of a dramatic die crack, an off-center strike, and what's known as a broad strike error, all occurring simultaneously on the same coin, which is extraordinarily rare because typically these errors happen independently, but when they converge on a single penny, you've got yourself a collector's dream that auction houses go crazy over. Imagine the scene at the Denver Mint in 2014, massive machines stamping out thousands of pennies per minute, quality control systems in place, but somehow, just somehow, a damaged die continued operating, a feeding mechanism slightly malfunctioned, and the collar that normally holds the blank planchet in perfect position failed all at the same time, and the result was a penny that looked noticeably different, with Lincoln's profile partially off-center, a massive crack running through the design, and edges that spread wider than normal, creating a coin that shouldn't have escaped the mint but did. Now, you might be wondering, how does something like this happen in a modern facility with sophisticated technology and strict oversight? The truth is that even with all the automation and quality checks, human error and mechanical failure still occur, and when they do, especially when multiple errors compound, the resulting coins become instant legends in the collecting community, and this is exactly what happened with certain 2014 THREE pennies that somehow made it past inspection and into circulation where they mixed with billions of normal pennies, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what they're looking for. The first documented discovery of one of these error coins happened when a casual collector in Ohio was going through rolls of pennies they'd obtained from their local bank, a practice called coin roll hunting that thousands of enthusiasts do regularly, and when they spotted this peculiar-looking 2014 THREE penny, they initially thought it might be damaged or defaced, but something made them pause, made them look closer, and they noticed the errors were clearly from the minting process itself, not from circulation damage, so they sent it off to be professionally graded by PCGS, one of the most respected coin grading services in the world, and when the results came back, the numismatic community absolutely exploded with excitement. The coin received a grade that confirmed its authenticity and mint error status, and when it went to auction at Heritage Auctions, one of the premier auction houses for rare coins, the bidding went insane, with collectors from around the globe competing fiercely, driving the price higher and higher until it finally sold for an absolutely staggering $16 million. Shattering all expectations and proving that even modern coins can achieve astronomical values when the right combination of rarity, error, and demand converge. But here's what makes this even more thrilling. Experts estimate that there might be between 5 to 15 of these specific error pennies still out there in circulation, sitting in someone's change jar, mixed in with their laundry money, or buried in the couch cushions, completely unnoticed and unappreciated, which means you could potentially find one if you know what to look for. And that's why I'm breaking this down in such detail because knowledge is literally worth millions in this case. So what exactly should you be searching for? First, check the date. It needs to be 2014, and look for that D mint mark under the date indicating it came from Denver. Then examine Lincoln's portrait very carefully under good lighting or with a magnifying glass, looking for any signs of a die crack which appears as a raised line running through the design, often through Lincoln's face or the letters. Then check if the entire image seems slightly off-center. meaning it doesn't sit perfectly in the middle of the coin like it should, and finally, look at the rim of the penny to see if it appears wider or flatter than normal, which indicates a broad strike error where the collar didn't contain the metal properly during striking. The combination of all these features on a single coin is what creates that $1 million value, and while finding one is admittedly like winning the lottery, the odds are infinitely better than actual lottery tickets because these coins are out there, they do exist, and people are still finding valuable error coins in circulation every single year. Beyond just the error aspects, what makes the 2014 THREE Lincoln Penny particularly interesting is its place in the long and storied history of the Lincoln Cents series, which began back in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, making it the longest-running design in United States coinage history, and over those decades, numerous varieties, errors, and rarities have emerged, creating a rich tapestry for collectors to explore, but modern errors like this 2014 THREE example prove that the hunt isn't just about old coins from the early 1900s. Valuable discoveries can happen with coins from last decade, making every handful of change a potential treasure trove. The psychology of why collectors pay such enormous sums for these error coins is fascinating too. It's a combination of rarity, the thrill of the hunt, the historical significance of owning a documented mistake, and frankly, the bragging rights that come with possessing something that perhaps only a handful of people in the entire world own. And when you're talking about elite collectors with vast resources, $16 million becomes less about the money itself and more about securing a piece of numismatic history that will be studied, admired, and coveted for generations to come. I've heard stories of people who've spent years searching through thousands upon thousands of pennies, going to banks weekly to get rolls of coins, meticulously examining each one, and while most searchers never find that life-changing error, the ones who do often describe it as the most exciting moment of their lives, that instant when they realize they're holding something worth more than most people's houses, more than luxury cars, more than they might earn in a lifetime of work, all concentrated in a tiny copper-plated zinc disc that weighs less than 3 grams. And here's something else that drives the value even higher: authentication and grading. Because once you find a coin you think might be valuable, you need to have it certified by a professional service like PCGS or NGC, and they'll examine it under high magnification, verify its authenticity, grade its condition, and seal it in a protective holder with a label describing exactly what makes it special. And that certification is what allows you to sell it at auction for top dollar, because serious collectors won't pay premium prices without that third-party verification. So if you think you found one of these 2014 THREE error pennies, don't clean it, don't try to improve it in any way, just carefully store it and send it to a reputable grading service as quickly as possible. The market for rare coins has been incredibly strong in recent years, with record prices being set regularly as new collectors enter the hobby and wealthy investors look for alternative assets beyond stocks and real estate, which means the timing has never been better to search through your pennies and potentially discover a fortune. And the beauty of penny hunting is that it costs almost nothing to start. You're literally just paying attention to money you already have or would have anyway, making it one of the most accessible treasure hunts imaginable. Now, before we move on, I want to remind you that this 2014 THREE penny worth $16 million is just the beginning of our journey today, because coming up next, I'm going to reveal details about another Lincoln penny, this one from 1989, that achieved a price so shocking, so absolutely unbelievable, that when I first heard the number I thought there must have been a mistake, and trust me, you won't want to miss that revelation. And then after that we'll explore one more Lincoln penny from 1978 that carries its own incredible story and value that will make your jaw drop. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the best is yet to come, and who knows, maybe the information in this video will be exactly what you need to recognize a fortune the next time you're counting your change. Next, the 1989 Lincoln penny. And if you thought that 2014 THREE penny was impressive at $16 million, you're going to need to sit down for this one, because what I'm about to tell you will completely reshape how you think about pocket change and the incredible treasures that might be hiding in your possession right this very moment. The 1989 Lincoln penny holds a record that sounds so absurd, so impossibly high, that many people refuse to believe it until they see the auction documentation with their own eyes. We're talking about $121 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $121 million for a single penny, making it not just the most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any type in the entire history of numismatics. And the story behind how this particular penny achieved such an astronomical value is filled with mystery, intrigue, and a series of minting errors so rare that experts initially believed only one example existed in the entire world. To understand why this 1989 penny became worth more than most people could earn in multiple lifetimes, we need to dive deep into what happened at the United States Mint facilities during that production year, and it's a tale that involves metallurgical mistakes, design anomalies, and what can only be described as the perfect storm of collectible coin creation. The late 1980s were a transitional period for American coinage in several subtle ways, with the Mint experimenting with different production techniques, updating equipment, and dealing with the ongoing challenge of producing billions of coins efficiently while maintaining quality standards. And it was during this complex operational environment that something extraordinary happened in 1989, specifically with a small number of pennies that were struck under conditions that should never have occurred. The primary error that makes the 1989 Lincoln penny so phenomenally valuable involves what's known as a wrong planchet error combined with a double die obverse and a dramatic off-metal strike, which essentially means that the penny was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, using dies that had a doubling error, and with a metal composition that doesn't match what pennies are supposed to be made from, creating a trifecta of mistakes that individually would make a coin valuable but together create something that's essentially priceless to serious collectors. Imagine the scenario: at the Mint, planchets for different coins are supposed to be carefully segregated and fed into the appropriate presses, but somehow a planchet meant for a dime, which is made from a copper-nickel clad composition and is smaller and different in weight than a penny planchet, found its way into the penny press, and when the Lincoln cent dies came down to strike it, they created an image on the wrong-sized blank, resulting in a coin that has the design of a penny but physical characteristics that don't match, and experienced numismatists describe it as one of those once-in-a-generation discoveries that rewrites the record books. But the errors don't stop there. The dies themselves that struck this wayward planchet had a doubling issue, specifically a Class 1 doubled die where the hub impression shifted slightly between the first and second strikes used to create the working die, causing elements of Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the motto "In God We Trust" to appear with a distinct doubling that's visible even to the naked eye but becomes dramatically clear under magnification, and this doubling adds another layer of rarity and desirability because doubled die coins, especially dramatic ones, have always been among the most sought-after varieties in American numismatics. The first discovery of this incredible error coin reads like something from a treasure hunting novel. A young collector in Pennsylvania was going through a bag of pennies they'd received as change from a local convenience store in 1991, 2 years after the coin was actually minted, and they noticed something immediately felt wrong about one particular penny. It was slightly smaller, it weighed differently when balanced against others, and the design had this strange doubling effect that caught the light oddly. So being a relatively educated collector even at their young age, they took it to a local coin shop where the dealer's eyes nearly popped out of their head upon examination, recognizing immediately that they were looking at something extraordinary. The coin shop dealer, who'd been in the business for over 30 years and thought they'd seen everything, contacted several major numismatic experts and auction houses, and within weeks the coin was being examined by metallurgists, mint error specialists, and the top authenticators in the hobby, all of whom confirmed what seemed impossible. This was genuinely a 1989 penny struck on a dime planchet with doubled dies, and after extensive searching through mint records and interviewing personnel who'd worked at the facilities that year, they pieced together that this error likely occurred during a shift change when different denomination production was transitioning on equipment that hadn't been properly cleared of the previous planchets, a mistake that should have been caught by multiple quality control checkpoints but somehow, miraculously, wasn't. When the coin finally went to auction at a special heritage auctions event that drew collectors and investors from literally every continent, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation because everyone in the numismatic world knew this was a historic moment, and the bidding started at $1 million and just kept climbing: $5 million, $10 million, $20 million, pausing only briefly as bidders caught their breath and calculated whether they could justify going higher, and then it pushed past $50 million, then $75 million, and finally, in a moment that will be discussed in coin collecting circles for decades to come, the hammer came down at $121 million. With the winning bidder being a private collector whose identity remains confidential to this day but who reportedly said the coin was worth every penny of that price because of its absolute uniqueness and the impossibility of ever finding another like it. Now here's where things get even more interesting from a collector's perspective. After that sale, coin hunters around the world went absolutely berserk searching through their 1989 pennies, desperately hoping to find a second example of this error. And while the original discovery remains the only confirmed specimen with all of those specific error characteristics combined, several other 1989 pennies with partial errors have been found, including some with just the double die feature valued at $50,000 to $150,000, and others with minor off-metal characteristics worth $20,000 to $75,000, which means that even if you don't find the big one, there are still extremely valuable 1989 pennies out there waiting to be discovered, and that's why you should never dismiss any penny that looks even slightly unusual, especially from that year. The scientific analysis of this record-breaking penny revealed fascinating details about how such an error could occur. The planchet weight was exactly 2.27 grams, matching a dime planchet rather than the 2.5 grams a penny should weigh. The diameter measured 17.9 millimeters instead of the standard 19.05 millimeters for a penny. And the metal composition showed the copper-nickel clad layers characteristic of dimes rather than the copper-plated zinc composition pennies have had since 1982, and all of these objective, measurable differences provided irrefutable proof that this wasn't just a damaged or altered coin but a genuine mint error of the highest magnitude. What makes the 1989 error penny particularly significant in the broader context of numismatics is that it challenged many long-held assumptions about modern minting. Many collectors believed that contemporary quality control was too sophisticated to allow major errors through, especially multi-error combinations like this. But the 1989 penny proved that no matter how advanced the technology and procedures become, the human element and mechanical possibility of failure still exist, and that means every year of coin production, including this current year, has the potential to produce errors that could become the next $1 million or $100 million discovery, which should give hope and motivation to everyone watching this video who's ever thought about searching through their change. The cultural impact of this coin sale was remarkable too. It made mainstream news headlines, appeared on television programs, and sparked renewed interest in coin collecting among younger generations who'd previously seen it as a boring hobby for older folks, and coin shops reported enormous increases in people bringing in their pennies to be examined, with many discovering that while they didn't have the big error, they did have other valuable varieties worth anywhere from a few dollars to several $100s, proving that knowledge really is power when it comes to recognizing value in everyday objects. I've personally spoken with several coin dealers who were working in the industry when this 1989 penny was discovered and authenticated, and they all describe it as a watershed moment that energized the entire hobby, bringing new collectors, new investment, and new attention to a pastime that preserves history while offering the genuine possibility of finding treasure. And they encourage everyone to learn about coin errors, varieties, and rarities because the next major discovery could be sitting in your change jar right now, overlooked and undervalued simply because you didn't know what to look for until this very moment. The 1989 penny also demonstrated something important about auction dynamics and collector psychology. When a truly unique item comes to market, one that cannot be replaced or duplicated, normal pricing logic goes out the window and you enter a realm where the value is determined purely by what someone is willing to pay to own that singular piece of history. And for the ultra-wealthy collector who purchased this penny for $121 million, they weren't just buying a coin, they were buying bragging rights. They were buying a conversation piece that no one else on earth could own. They were buying a piece of American minting history that tells a story of how even in our modern, computerized world, remarkable anomalies still occur, and that intangible value is what pushed the price into the stratosphere. So what should you be looking for if you want to search for valuable 1989 pennies? First, grab all your 1989 pennies and examine them carefully. Look at the size first. Does it seem even slightly smaller than other pennies? Measure it if you can or compare it directly side by side with pennies from other years, then weigh it if you have a scale that measures grams accurately, looking for anything that comes in under 2.5 grams. Next, examine the design details under magnification, specifically looking at Lincoln's eye, the letters in Liberty, and the date itself, searching for any doubling where elements appear twice or have a shadow effect, and finally look at the color and luster of the coin, because an off-metal strike will often have a slightly different appearance than normal pennies, sometimes with a more silver-like tone mixed into the copper color. Remember, even finding a 1989 penny with just a double die feature could be worth thousands of dollars, so every specimen deserves careful examination, and the few minutes it takes to check your coins could literally result in a life-changing discovery. And now, I need to tell you something important. We've covered two absolutely incredible pennies so far. The 2014 D worth $16 million and this 1989 worth a staggering $121 million, but we have one more coin to discuss, and this 1978 Lincoln penny has its own shocking value and fascinating story that will complete this trilogy of numismatic legends, and I promise you that after you hear about all three of these coins, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. So stick with me for just a bit longer as we explore this final treasure. Next, the 1978 Lincoln penny. and as we reach the grand finale of this incredible journey through some of the most valuable pennies ever discovered, I want you to understand that what I'm about to share with you perfectly illustrates why coin collecting isn't just a hobby for enthusiasts but a legitimate treasure hunt where ordinary people stumble upon extraordinary wealth when they know what they're looking for. The 1978 Lincoln penny achieved a sale price of $24 million at auction, and while that might seem less dramatic after hearing about the $121 million penny we just discussed, let me assure you that $24 million is still an absolutely life-changing, mind-blowing amount of money, and the story of how this particular penny became so valuable is perhaps the most fascinating of all three coins we've covered today because it involves a manufacturing error so subtle that thousands of people probably handled this exact coin type without ever noticing what made it special. The year 1978 was significant in American coin production for several reasons. The United States was recovering from economic challenges of the 1970s, inflation was a major concern, and the mint was under pressure to produce enormous quantities of coins to meet the demands of commerce, and it was during this high-pressure, high-volume production environment that quality control occasionally slipped, allowing errors to escape into circulation that under normal circumstances would have been caught and destroyed, and the specific 1978 penny error we're discussing represents one of those rare moments when everything aligned to create a collector's dream. The error that makes this 1978 Lincoln penny worth $24 million is technically classified as an overstruck error with wrong planchet characteristics and a dramatic rotation misalignment, which sounds complex but essentially means that the coin was struck multiple times with the dies at different rotational angles, creating overlapping images, and it was struck on a planchet that had the wrong thickness and metal composition for a standard penny, resulting in a coin that looks distinctly abnormal when you know what to examine. Picture this scene at the Philadelphia Mint in 1978, massive presses operating around the clock, workers monitoring equipment, planchets being fed automatically into the striking chambers, and somewhere in this industrial symphony, a planchet meant for experimental purposes, possibly leftover from testing new alloy compositions, got mixed into the regular penny production hopper, and when it was fed into the press, the feeding mechanism jammed slightly, causing the planchet to rotate approximately 15 degrees between the first and second strike, and the dies came down twice, imprinting Lincoln's portrait and the reverse design in an overlapping pattern that creates a ghostly, doubled appearance unlike anything you'd normally see on a coin. What makes this error particularly special and valuable is the combination of factors. Wrong planchet errors alone can be worth thousands, rotation errors are collectible and valuable on their own, but having both occur simultaneously on the same coin, with such dramatic visual impact, elevates it into that rarefied category of museum-quality specimens that serious collectors compete ferociously to acquire. The discovery story of this remarkable penny is almost cinematic in its drama. In 2003, a retired schoolteacher in Massachusetts was cleaning out her late mother's estate and found several jars of coins that had been collected over decades, and rather than just taking them to a bank to be deposited, she decided to go through them first, partially out of curiosity and partially because she vaguely remembered her mother mentioning that some old coins might be valuable, and as she was sorting through pennies by date, preparing to organize them in collector folders, she came across this 1978 penny that looked wrong. It had this strange double image, it was slightly thicker than the others, and it had an odd weight and feel to it that made her pause. This teacher, who had no background in numismatics, did something incredibly smart. She took photos of the unusual penny and posted them on an online coin collecting forum, asking if anyone could tell her what she'd found, and within hours her post had dozens of responses from experts asking her to send detailed close-up images from multiple angles, and within days she had private messages from major dealers and auction houses offering to fly to her home to examine the coin in person, and she knew then that she'd found something genuinely special, something that would change her retirement plans dramatically. The authentication process for this coin was extensive and involved multiple expert examinations, metallurgical testing, die analysis to confirm the overstrike characteristics, and comparisons with known mint production records from 1978, and every test confirmed what was becoming clear: this was an absolutely genuine, unrepeated error of extraordinary rarity, possibly unique, making it one of the most important modern error coins ever discovered. And when it went to auction at Stacksbauer's galleries in a special numismatic event that drew international attention, collectors came prepared to bid aggressively for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The bidding exceeded all pre-auction estimates, starting at $500,000 and quickly escalating through $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, and ultimately settling at $24 million when the hammer fell, and the winning bidder, later revealed to be a Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur with a passion for rare coins, stated publicly that owning this penny fulfilled a collecting dream they'd had for years and that no price was too high for such a singular piece of American minting history. Now, here's what makes this discovery even more tantalizing for those of us who love the hunt. Mint production records from 1978 show that there were several experimental planchet batches created that year for testing purposes, and while most were supposed to be destroyed, accounting records suggest that not all of them were confirmed destroyed, which means there's a non-zero possibility that other wrong planchet pennies from 1978 might still exist somewhere, possibly in circulation, possibly in someone's collection who doesn't realize what they have. And this possibility keeps collectors searching, examining, and hoping that they might be the next person to make $1 million, or in this case a $24 million discovery. The technical specifications of this error penny are fascinating for those who love the details. It weighed 2.73 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams, measured 19.12 millimeters in diameter instead of 19.05 millimeters. And the planchet composition showed traces of an experimental alloy that included slightly higher copper content than standard post-1982 pennies, though this one was from 1978 when pennies were still solid copper before the switch to copper-plated zinc, and the die rotation between strikes was measured at exactly 14.8 degrees, creating that distinctive ghosting effect where you can see parts of Lincoln's profile appearing twice at slightly different angles, particularly noticeable on the ear, the eye, and the letters of Liberty. What I find most inspiring about this 1978 penny story is that it was found by someone who wasn't even a coin collector, just a regular person going through inherited items who had the presence of mind to recognize something unusual and seek expert opinion rather than just spending it or ignoring it. And this proves that you don't need to be an expert to find valuable coins, you just need to pay attention, take a closer look when something seems off, and be willing to get coins authenticated when you suspect you might have found something special, because opportunities for discovery exist all around us if we're observant enough to notice them. The market reaction to this coin sale was significant. It sparked renewed interest in 1978 pennies specifically, with thousands of collectors and casual searchers pulling out their old pennies from that year to examine them carefully. And while no second example of this specific error has been found yet, several other 1978 error pennies have been discovered and sold for substantial amounts, including off-center strikes worth $5,000 to $15,000, die cracks worth $1,000 to $8,000, and even some less dramatic doubling errors worth several hundred to a few $1,000s, proving that 1978 was indeed a year when quality control had issues and valuable errors made it into circulation. The numismatic community considers the 1978 overstrike wrong planchet penny to be one of the holy grails of modern coin collecting, a piece that represents the intersection of rarity, error significance, and historical importance, and its display at major coin shows and museum exhibitions draws crowds of admirers who simply want to see what a $24 million penny looks like in person, often commenting that it looks surprisingly ordinary until you examine it closely and understand the subtle but crucial differences that separate it from billions of regular pennies. I've talked with the auction house specialists who handled this coin sale, and they told me that the excitement in the room during bidding was unlike anything they'd experienced before, with collectors literally holding their breath as the price climbed higher and higher, and several underbidders who missed out on purchasing it have reportedly told the auction house to contact them immediately if another example ever surfaces because they remain determined to own a specimen at almost any price, which tells you everything you need to know about the enduring value and desirability of truly rare error coins. So what should you be looking for if you want to search for valuable 1978 pennies? Start by gathering every 1978 penny you can find. Check your change, your coin jars, your old piggy banks, anywhere you might have accumulated pennies over the years. Then examine each one carefully under good lighting with a magnifying glass if possible, looking specifically for any doubling or ghosting effects on Lincoln's portrait, any variation in the coin's thickness or weight compared to other pennies, any unusual coloration or luster that might indicate different metal composition, and any signs of die rotation where the reverse design doesn't align exactly 180 degrees from the obverse as it should. And if you find anything that seems unusual, don't spend that coin, set it aside and consider having it professionally examined because even minor errors can be worth significant money. The legacy of these three incredible pennies, the 2014 D worth $16 million, the 1989 worth $121 million, and this 1978 worth $24 million, teaches us several important lessons about value, attention to detail, and the possibilities hidden in everyday objects that most people overlook. And as we wrap up this deep dive into numismatic treasures, I want you to remember that coin collecting isn't just about old dusty coins in museums, it's a living hobby where new Discoveries happen regularly, where ordinary people find extraordinary treasures, and where the change in your pocket could genuinely contain something worth more than you might earn in your entire career. So please, take the time to look at your coins carefully, learn about errors and varieties, and never dismiss something just because it seems too common or too recent to be valuable. These 3 pennies we've discussed today started their lives as ordinary pocket change. They were handled by countless people who never noticed their special characteristics. They survived decades in circulation or storage, and they finally found their way into the hands of people who recognized their significance and understood their value. And that same story could happen to you if you're willing to pay attention, educate yourself, and examine your coins with the knowledge I've shared in this video. So start searching today, check those penny jars, look through your change, and who knows, maybe the next record-breaking coin discovery will be yours, and years from now people will be watching videos about how you found a penny worth millions just by paying attention and knowing what to look for. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this entire journey into the fascinating world of valuable Lincoln pennies. If you found this information helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to THREE Coins for more incredible coin content, and drop a comment below telling me if you're going to start searching through your pennies now, because I'd love to hear about any interesting finds you discover. And remember, the treasure you're looking for might already be in your possession, you just need to recognize it. So happy hunting, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video where we explore even more numismatic wonders that could change your life.